Hello and welcome to this webinar brought to you by FSB, that's the Federation of Small Businesses, in conjunction and partnership with Amazon and their Small Business Accelerator. This is the third and final in a series of 3 webinars, and today we're looking at protecting your business, specifically looking at funding and finance, a hot topic certainly in the UK, Europe, and of course, worldwide. I'm Dave Sharp, a proud FSB member, also your MC for today, and I'm a BBC broadcaster as well. So my job today is to guide proceedings with our 4 expert panelists, and I'll introduce them to you now. They are Sophie Dale Black. Sophie is the director at the British Bank, or a director at the British Bank. Mike Conroy is joining us. Mike is Director of Commercial Finance at UK Finance. Samarth Gogia is General Manager for Amazon Payments and Lending. And last but not least, Darren Park is Senior Policy Advisor at FSB for Finance, Tax and Economic Policy. So today we'll be covering a range of subjects, including capital finance. We'll look at crowdfunding. We'll focus on equity finance and also peer-to-peer lending. But if there's a burning issue for you, please feel free to drop us a question in the Q&A. We'll pick those up. All of our panelists will be looking for those questions, and if we get a chance, we'll address them. But what I would say is keep an eye in your email inbox for a little link to this. We're recording today's session, so you can also go back and watch it again if there's something that you missed or you want to focus on again. You perhaps pick up some ideas and then think about them again later. We'll be sharing top tips. We'll be looking at what you can do. Any links that we mention will also drop in that email, so don't worry about writing them down. We'll share them with you in the email, plus the link to this recording. So before we crack on, we've got an important message. It's brought to you by Helen Whately MP. Helen is the MP for Faversham and Mid-Kent. She's also a Minister of State in the Department of Health and Social Care. Let's hear from Helen now.
I know it's tough out there for small businesses at the moment. Your customers have got less money to spend and your bills are going up at the same time. And amongst those costs going up for you, also the cost of any interest you might have on debt. So it's really important to know where to look for the best options on that. That's why the FSB's event is really valuable, and I hope you'll get lots of useful information that will help you in the months and years ahead.
Thank you to Helen. She's absolutely right. We are in a situation at the moment everybody's aware of, finance and funding, difficult to come by. FSB working on our behalf, on their members' behalf, to address that issue in conjunction, of course, with Amazon and their Small Business Accelerator. Let's dive straight in. Mike, I'm going to come to you now. It's a serious problem. How difficult is it out there financially for people and getting funding? Is the situation changed dramatically?
Oh, well, good morning, everyone. And really gross lending to small and medium-sized businesses by the UK banks and a growing number of non-banks was around 48 billion this year to the third quarter. So that suggests that by year end, we will be broadly in line with the pre-pandemic levels. Back then, there was a record of 104 billion lent, so quite a large sum of money. But at the moment, lenders are well capitalized. They've got very good liquidity, and what that means in layman's terms, it means that there's funding available for sound businesses that are looking to grow. However, of course, affordability of debt finance is a challenge. Some businesses out there have got existing debt to service. There was over 1.5 million bounce back loans provided during the pandemic. So that out of nearly 6 million SMEs is obviously quite a good number. And obviously, if you combine that with the difficult economic conditions we're all facing and rising interest rates, clearly those are factors that would be taken into account. So, the overall good news is lenders are not sort of raising the credit bar, but obviously, they do need to be prudent, and we'll be taking a number of these factors into consideration.
When you talk about that prudence, Mike, obviously we always talk about nerves and faith in the economy, trust. Are lenders and financiers more cautious now? Are they going through more rigorous processes before they consider lending money?
I think the processes are pretty much as they've always been. I mean, they do need to carefully assess how likely they are to get their money back before providing a sort of a business loan, and they want to be as certain as they can. But for many, the checks are sort of automated based on publicly available data, such as information held at Companies House and sort of from credit reference agencies. So lenders will carry out those checks to establish a business good track record and whether they've been able to make payments on previous commitments. They'll check on the amount of debt outstanding and the turnover of the business, and how long they've been trading, and various sort of trading patterns. But they will obviously be very careful to consider if you've got existing debt, and lenders will need to consider your ability to service that existing lending and any additional credit.
We'd expect them to be rigorous regardless of the economic climate. So, but obviously they're looking more carefully, shall we say, and people who are applying for funding need to be aware of what they're looking for so that they've got all their answers and information to hand. I mean, if we were applying for finance funding, where could we go? What sort of options are available at the moment, given what we already know in the climate?
Well, the most common forms of business finance is debt finance, and the most commonly used are overdrafts and loans. They're the products that everybody tends to be very familiar with. That's really followed by asset finance and leasing, HP and invoice finance. So asset finance really used to buy things like cars and other pieces of equipment. You can obviously lease those as well or buy them in HP. Invoice finance is a good product for if you're selling to other businesses, and it enables your invoices to be paid, well, to you anyway, straight away, rather than having to wait 30 or more days to get funded. But there are many other forms of finance, such as credit cards, peer-to-peer lending, and finance provided by platforms such as Amazon, with us today, of course, and they're in a unique position to offer finance to their sellers. Other than debt finance, the alternative to debt finance is equity, and in simple terms, that's the raising of capital through the sale of shares in a business.
So there are options available, which is good, and it provided me with a beautiful link there, Mike. Thanks to bring Samarth in. Samarth is from Amazon, and most people will have heard of Amazon, and they'll have used Amazon, Samarth, and they perhaps don't realise as a business that there are finance options available to them. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about and what people can do to go for that finance.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy to provide more insights. So, before I go there, I would like to call out, at Amazon, like one of our core principles is what we call customer obsession. So, with that in mind, we are listening to our business customers, and we continuously work to build solutions that help businesses to optimize their cash flow. And kind of that's the reason why we launched this program called Amazon Lending. So as part of this program, what we are doing is we offer term loans of various durations to sellers who are selling on the Amazon UK marketplace. The program was designed with small and medium businesses in mind. The way it works is that eligible sellers have the ability to apply for term loans with fixed rates through a very convenient application process directly through their Seller Central account on Amazon. And it does not involve any of the traditional, lengthy paperwork. So the bottom line is the idea of this program is to make the end-to-end financing experience transparent and as simple as possible for small businesses.
And I mean, this is great news, isn't it? Because we're going to cover this today, and we're already getting questions in the Q&A about, certain sectors being excluded possibly, or finding it harder to go for finance. That some of the routes to finance might be more difficult, and we'll bring Sophie in soon to talk about other options. But the Amazon option, I mean, are there some simple steps that people can follow if they're trading online through Amazon, Samarth?
Yeah, so I think that it's the way it works is, I mean, our principle for this program is guided by like if you infuse capital at the right moment, that puts these small businesses on the path to success and growth on Amazon. And I think it's an invite-only program. So what we're looking at is some of the common things of how businesses and our how sellers are doing on our marketplace, and then the ones who qualify, they can easily sort of get avail this financing.
You mentioned there, and I know this will crop up a lot. We hear the word growth, and growth will depend on support, financial support. If I want to expand my business or go further afield, I'm going to probably need some pump priming or finance, and of course, if that's not available, then I can't grow. So we're in that sort of chicken and egg situation. But you're saying there that you analyze the ability of a company to grow through their sales online. Is that right, Samar?
Yeah, I think that's right. And we also, talk to our sellers, and we collect, their insights and inputs, which we also use, to continuously do better. And I would say there are lots of ways sellers use these funds, to be successful and to grow. But I think there are three kind of main kind of use cases that we hear. So one is inventory management. So, sellers use these funds, for example, to bulk buy inventory for key events such as Prime Day or holiday. And while in doing so, they're also benefiting from bulk buy discounts. The other very common use case is, sellers use these funds to, develop, test, and launch new products to, expand their product portfolio and diversify their product portfolio. And the final one is around marketing. So using the funds to, acquire new customers or build deeper relationship with current customers. So I think with these sort of kind of common use cases, sellers use these funds, and that helps them be more successful and grow.
Just clarify something for me, Samarth, and probably people watching this webinar as well. You say it's by invitation only, but presumably people have to wave a flag and say, I'd like to be considered. Is that right?
Yeah, I think sellers can contact us, but I think as I said, like for sellers who are using Amazon on their Seller Central account, the ones who qualify, they see this offer and they can, easily apply. But they have the ability to contact us, and we have sort of we'll paste the link of our program as part of the email that goes out.
Perfect, great. So I'll just remind everybody, any links that we mentioned today, don't worry, you don't have to grab a pen or put the question in the Q&A. We will send you an email with all of those useful links to it. Sophie, with great news, Amazon are on board. They bring in finance. Mike's already outlined one or two of the traditional routes. Where else can people go for finance?
Yeah, definitely. Mike did a really nice summary there of the different types of finance that are available to businesses, and great to hear about the Amazon offering there. I think what is really important, and speaking from experience at the British Business Bank, we're a government-owned but independently managed bank. We have more than 210 delivery partners, so organisations that we work through to provide that finance out into the business system. That's a lot in itself, 210, but obviously that's a snapshot of all the different options available across the country. And what's really important is that businesses firstly need to get the advice they need, particularly from business advisors, but they're accountants. But at the British Business Bank, we have what we call the Finance Hub, and it's a great place for businesses to come and to look at the different options that are available to them, and to almost guide themselves through the process of how much they need, what they need it for, how they intend either to pay that back if it's a loan, or to offer equity options within their business. But what's really good within our Finance Hub is it's realistic for today's climate. There's lots of guidance on there of how to look at lending within the uncertain climate that we find ourselves in today. But also it has various sections looking at starting up, but also scaling your businesses. And for those that are needing to just stay ahead in today's climate, there's plenty of information on there as well.
Brilliant. And we've got a question already in the Q&A about some of the I suppose some businesses are seen as riskier, but they're finding it more challenging to get financed. Maybe the leisure industry, other businesses. What would your advice be to them, those that perhaps don't have a straight pathway towards finance?
Yeah, so my first option is always to suggest talking to the qualified financial advisors, the business's accountant themselves, to get that kind of guidance. But I would point to, for example, the recovery loan scheme that the British Business Bank has available at the moment. This operates through many of the high street banks, but also there's more than 60 delivery partners offering this. And this is there to help businesses really stay ahead in today's climate.
Sure, and of course, people not only concerned about access to finance, but the cost as well, because we see a lot about those fees rising. We'll bring Darren in later. I'm sure he's got an opinion on that. But Sophie, anything to add on that? You know, there's some, I don't like to use the word cheaper, but I'm going to. Are there cheaper options available once you've managed to secure finance?
There's a variety of options, and that's why it's really important businesses look for the correct one for them. It may not be to take out a loan. I mean, Mike mentioned invoice finance, leasing, all kinds of things that can work out better value for the business rather than necessarily taking out the obvious loan option.
Sure. Mike, one of the things that we learned, certainly during the pandemic, but in previous recessions, and all of the pointers are that we're either in a recession now, certainly heading into one, is the number of people, and we have to take our hat off to them, certainly FSB we do, that start businesses during a recession or a downturn in economic finance. Some have already started, maybe they started during the pandemic, so they're still young. They don't have a trading record, or perhaps their first couple of years are showing a deficit. How do they apply for funding with that kind of track record or that sort of immaturity in their business?
It's a really good question, and of course we have somewhere like maybe 400,000 startups every year. So there's a lot that come into the market. I always recommend people to certainly those are looking to start up, and particularly the smaller ones, I point them towards the startup loans program that's run by the British Business Bank, and as well as finance. One of the great things about the BBB's program is you get the benefit of mentoring and support, which is really, really invaluable. Other than that, for any form of startup finance, my advice is that you really need to create a sound business plan, because that will demonstrate the market potential, the cash flow the business is going to operate. Tells anyone reading the plan about the income the business will generate, and of course the underlying costs of running it. And if you think about it, any potential backer or lender will want to see that you've got a proper plan in place. You've got no trading history that they can sort of rely on, so they need to be able to sort of look at a plan to get them some idea of whether it's likely to be a success or not. If you're not sure how to put a business plan together, then don't be afraid to ask for advice. If you've got a strong business idea, banks and other professional advisors, mentors, or business bodies are available to help you turn those ideas into a proper business plan. And I think Sophie gave some really good ideas when she spoke, and I'd recommend looking at the British Business Bank's finance hub, and there's some other sources there worth looking at. The ICAW, the accountants body, have got a business finance guide which is really helpful, and of course the FSB, also on the call today, have got a finance finder, and these are all very useful resources to help you understand the options available.
I mean, that's great news. It's reassuring, Mike, because I think still there's a myth that exists that that everyone's going to make it as hard as possible. But actually, from what you're saying, and we'll bring Sophie back in now, is that there are routes, there are people there within the financial systems at FSB, Amazon, and other places that are there to support you, to guide you, to give you that knowledge. Sophie, so Mike's teed you up beautifully there. You probably want to add something to what he said on the ease and the smoother pathway, especially for younger businesses that are trying to put a plan together.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Really, really kind words about the Startup Loans Programme. I wanted to mention that particular programme for many reasons, not least it has been really successful. 97,000 startup loans, more than £900 million across the UK through those loans. And what's really great about them is the mentoring that Mike mentions, but also just how accessible they are for entrepreneurs. So forgive all the stats, but 40% have been for female entrepreneurs, 21% have been for minority ethnic entrepreneurs, 40% have been for 18 to 30-year-old entrepreneurs. So really accessible across genders, across ethnic diversity, but also across age as well. And what I really like about them is not just the mentoring that Mike mentioned, but actually there's a bolt-on program with the Open University that's accessible to everybody, even if you don't take a loan. And I will get this link sent out. Is e-learning programs that are available to help startups to learn about accounting, to learn about sustainability options, to learn about mental health amongst your employees. But I'll just finish on a positive. The Startup Loans Programme has expanded. We've had more finance into it through the UK government's contribution. But now you can apply for those up to 3 years from founding for your first loan, and up to 5 years from your second loan, which is really helping us to reach more businesses using that programme.
Great news to hear, Sophie, about the diversity. You know, it's good that it's reaching people. I mean, we saw a massive surge in people working from home, sole traders, women coming into business. You've mentioned hard to reach groups. Brilliant news. So we would actively encourage people who are thinking that they might be excluded. No, try, go forward. People are looking out for you. Darren, that might be a nice link to you. You've been sitting there patiently. I touched on this earlier. For those that don't know FSB, we are a membership organisation. I say I've been a proud member for 11 years. And at first you see all the member benefits, the things that you can access. But one of the things that FSB does brilliantly is that collectively we are stronger. We are all in this together. And FSB has got an army of volunteers and paid staff who lobby for the kind of things that are affecting us. And right now, finance is affecting small business, not just the access to finance, the cost of finance, which we'll talk about now, but also things like inflation, rising prices, energy costs. Darren, you'll have an opinion on this, and certainly FSB will have a position on this, won't they?
We do. I think it's not overstating to say that small businesses are having a pretty tough time in Q3, moving into Q4 of this year. We run a quarterly survey called the Small Business Index, where we track a range of kind of economic metrics, ranging kind of from confidence, costs, access to finance, employment, revenues, and so on. And kind of across the board, it's just seeming quite pessimistic. And this is exactly what FSB exists for. We take this data and we take the kind of case study stories from the grassroots, and we take this as a united front to the stakeholders, to government, and lobby on behalf of the small businesses to get them the best possible policies for them to operate in this kind of economic climate. As you said, the cost of finance, I think, is an issue that's going to persist for a long time, especially with the interest rates rising so rapidly over the last few months. The COVID period saw many small businesses that may not necessarily have wanted to take out finance, but have the debt burden of that finance is huge. Obviously, a lot of that is not necessarily interest rate linked because of the kind of the way the bounce back loans were set up. But any pre-existing debt and any debt taken out kind of following that to survive the uncertain times is going to be linked to interest rates, and is going to continue to grow and place quite a large stress on these businesses that need to repay them. And
are you seeing evidence that people can renegotiate those debts, you know, in terms of the terms?
We haven't heard a lot of that, no. I think a lot of the loans, especially the kind of COVID loans, are fairly set in stone. You've got the bounce back loan pay-as-you-grow option, which is again run by the British Business Bank, which has been incredibly helpful to businesses that took out the bounce back loan. So, I mean, this is something we've been pushing for since its announcement in 21, that if you are struggling with your bounce back loans, engage with your lender and see what you can do. You should be able to extend it to 10 years, reducing your monthly repayments. There's a interest-free holiday and a payment holiday you can take as well. All this to kind of alleviate some of the burdens as well, kind of get your business back on track during recovery.
We talked about interest rates there, Darren, but of course, and inflation, of course, but of course, the burning issue, excuse the pun, is the rise in energy prices that are affecting businesses at every level. And I know that FSB and others are pushing for some kind of even just a acknowledgement that there will be support available. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that can often be the thing that damages businesses. Uncertainty, isn't it?
I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing investment curtailed just because businesses are rather sitting on the cash rather than kind of invest in their business, because they don't know where the business will be in a few months or what the economic climate or consumer confidence will be in a few months. In terms of the energy, we have lobbied very hard with the government to impose or introduce a energy relief scheme for businesses, much similar to kind of what the consumers were getting. And this has now been announced as a result in the last budget. So that has been a big win from the FSB side, and hopefully will alleviate a lot of the kind of energy cost burden for businesses, especially in businesses in high energy sectors like manufacturing. But again, I don't think it can be overstated. We're looking at a fairly hard, tough few months for businesses.
Yeah, and I'd just say that anybody who is a member or has access to completing those questionnaires, I suppose, and surveys, it's really useful to have that data and have that information, because that's the data and information you take and lobby with, isn't it, at FSB? So we encourage people not to just sit back and go, well, nobody cares, why should I bother? Fill it in, because, you know, that's evidence that can sway opinion and ultimately make change, can't it?
It's precisely that. We get a very strong foot in the door with governments that I think a lot of organizations don't get, because of our membership base and the data that we can extract from the small business community. But it goes beyond just we have ideas that we're looking to back up. These surveys we do are also there to influence what we lobby on. We do take a grassroots approach. We have our regional network that talk to businesses directly, and we also take directly what's from the surveys in influencing what type of policies we should be putting forward.
Yeah, and I can say that there's been many successes, not least of all on late and non-payments. You know, there's nothing worse than thinking I have got a healthy business. It's just that no one pays me on time, and therefore I've got this great big gap or hole in my finances until I get paid. And I know that's something that everybody's concerned about, but FSB is working hard to address, and will let people know what they should do if they are having problems. Mike, Darren mentioned debt there. We talked about maybe possibly renegotiating, but where else can people go for debt support if they just go, look, do you know what? I'm in a hole here. I think I can survive, but I just need some short-term help.
Well, I think there is a number of business support providers throughout the UK. I think the government actually has got a helpful website, which is gov.uk, which is a single point of access to all the government services and information. It provides there's information out there on starting and running a business, your statutory rights and obligations, and also covers the support along the lines we've been talking about, use of business finance, and and many other topics that they cover off. They do offer a business support helpline, which is a key element of the government's business support package, and that service provides advice and support and funding and business improvement guidance right from pre-starts and startups through to existing businesses. There's also a number of growth hubs throughout the country. I put my teeth in there. I think there's about 38 of those, and one for every local enterprise partnership. So, a fair bit that the government puts on offer to the small business community. Now, there's also support available from mentoring organisations, local accountants, and many more. On the particular issue of financial worries, then Business Debt Line is a free and independent debt advice service, and they provide support over the phone or online. And probably finally, a really important point that was made earlier, that if you are struggling to make repayments on your existing loans, then do get in touch with your lenders, because obviously they don't know unless you tell them, and they will try and help if they're able to do so. If you're struggling.
Definitely, and I mean, it can be a tremendous worry, and we talk a lot about mental health and you know, it's important that people realise that there is support available even in their darkest day, isn't it? That everybody's in this together and that we're here to support each other. Mike, tell us a little bit about equity finance.
Yeah, equity finance, not many small businesses make use of it, and that's often because they're not keen on the idea of providing a share of their business to somebody else, because that's exactly what sort of equity does. And equity, by its nature, is not an option for sole traders. You would have to incorporate it then and sort of do it that way. That said, UK equity investment has been very strong in recent years. It's been over 18 billion. That's quite a large number invested in sort of high growth businesses in 2021. There are a number of, as I say, equity type of options available. I would advise you start off by looking at the finance guides and hub information that we talked about earlier to see if equity is the right choice for you, and take advice through the various resources that we've suggested today. And if you do conclude that equity is right for you, there are many investment sources such as business angel networks, seed funds, incubators, venture capital, private equity, and many more, such as the funding programs provided by the British Business Bank, and there are other SME equity providers such as the Business Growth Fund. So really, the first, in summary, message is to find out about it and what those options are, see where you are, and see if it's the right thing for you. And then, as I say, do some homework and then get in touch with the people who will be able to advise you.
Great. We'll talk more to Samarth soon about the not just the finance available, but the business accelerator, because any support, especially if you're a sole trader or you're working in a small group, you're working from home, you're feeling isolated, it's good to know where you can go. So we'll look at that kind of support. So not specifically about finance and funding, but that general support to keep you going, keep you on track, and hopefully lead to growth. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Sophie, to talk about the challenges that we have unearthed about the challenges that female entrepreneurs and business people have in securing finance. But Darren, I've just looked in the Q&A and there is an interesting question there, which I'm actually going to read out. It says, can you talk about inward investment? Specifically, the UK banks are unwilling to open accounts for businesses that wish to set up in the UK where the UBO is not British. How are FSB helping with that?
So I think the broader issue is the business bank accounts has been problematic, is probably the word I would use, since the kind of financial crash in 2008. We have this pop up every few months from members, and queries come up that they're struggling to get open banks, both from international individuals as well as domestically. I think it's largely, probably Mike may correct me on this, leading from the UK finance side, but I think it's largely to do with risk appetite by banks and to do with anti-money laundering. I think the checks in place now are a lot stricter than they used to be, which creates this natural barrier for the ability to open a business banking account in the UK. That's not to say that we aren't working with UK finance and the banks to kind of ease the process for small businesses. One of the main issues we hear time and time again is that small businesses are operating out of a current account. That in itself is not necessarily the best situation they can be in, and it would be much better for them to be operating out of the business current account, but they often struggle to. So it's an ongoing discussion we have with many of the banks, and I don't think there's necessarily a very easy solution, but it is one we are aware of, and it's one we are trying to ease and trying to make better for the small business community.
Sophie, I mentioned there some of the challenges that female entrepreneurs and business people have in accessing finance. Why that is, well, perhaps you know the answer, but it's not right. And I'd be interested to know what's being done and what steps entrepreneurs can take to overcome it.
Yeah, definitely. The data is quite blatant on this. So I'm going to refer to equity investment, which Mike has taken us through already. And the equity investment given to female founders has dropped again recently. And just to put it into perspective, if you think about £1, 2 pence in the pound goes to female founders, 14 pence in the pound goes to mixed male and female founding teams, and 84 pence goes to all male founding teams. So it's quite stark. It's 2% to women, 14% to mixed teams, and 84% to males. And obviously there's a lot of work to do that. And one of the things that's going on at the moment is there's something called the Investing in Women Code. And financial services firms, the investors themselves, are signing up to this code to really make it more transparent, and make it more obvious that they are willing to help female founders to gain access to tools, to resources, but also to the finance itself. And there's data that shows that warm introductions and accessibility of networks to women is really advantageous to them. And I would say also there are positive interventions going on around the country. And obviously I work in the Midlands and the north of England. If I may point out Fund Her North as one example of an intervention where there are investment readiness sessions held for female founders all the time, where they are brought together with investors and really given those opportunities to learn and to find out more and to gain those connections and networks. But also Fund Her North they're growing the female angel network. Now we know that female angels like to invest in female founder companies. It makes sense. But there are some glimmers of hope. These interventions are starting to take traction. They're not visible yet in those 2 pence overall numbers. But when you look at seed stage, the early stage, that's up at 9 pence in the pound. So that much earlier stage, the traction is starting to take effect. And that's great news for the future for female founders.
Good news, but we should keep the spotlight on that, because that figure you gave us, I'm shocked. That's awful, and that has to be addressed. I mean, do you have any specific examples of grants that female entrepreneurs and business people can go for? Are there some immediate quick wins, or is it a long-term thing?
If I may use an example from, I used to work at Innovate UK in the past, and they've got a really brilliant grant program around women in innovation, and that's available specifically for women. But what it also does is it has added mentoring, added guidance around it. It's not just about the money. And I think in the equity world, this is really where things like Fund Her North, and there are other examples around the country, they're really making a difference, because it's more than the money. It's more than the equity investment being available. It's about embracing female founders and taking them on the journey and showing them all the options. I spoke at a Manchester event recently where every type of finance pretty much was talked about during the day. Just the vibe in the room, the buzz. As female founders, they want the finance. They want to be ready to secure the money. We just need to get them better connected with the investors themselves. Fantastic.
That it's been talked about. It's something that it's being addressed. Lots of work to do there, Sophie, I'm sure. One of the things that gets mentioned a lot, and I've already alluded to this, is cash flow, being paid on time, making sure that you've got money coming in as money's going out. So Marth, over at Amazon, is the support available? What's Amazon doing about addressing the issues that some people have with cash flow?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. So, we talked about Amazon lending, and when our sellers who have taken loans, we do offer a program with payments assistance, where we work with the sellers on a case-to-case basis, choosing various sort of payment repayment options. Other than that, we have also other products. So for small businesses who are procuring on Amazon Business, Amazon Business is our B2B marketplace. We also offer pay by invoice, which is a line of credit and invoicing program, which also offers additional, flexibility and control to businesses. So yeah, we're doing a few more things to help small businesses with cash flow.
Excellent. And I know, Mike, you'll have something to say about cash flow. I mean, it's critical, isn't it? You can have the best business plan in the world, but if the cash isn't flowing, you're hitting a brick wall immediately.
Yeah, and absolutely. There's an old saying about cash being king, and that profit is sanity, profit is vanity, and cash flow is sanity. So it is really important. people need to, so it always is worth thinking about, the impact on your, as I say, on your working capital that, things like late payment, have, and get a good handle on that. And, again, don't be afraid to talk to your lender if you can see these problems down the track, because, the last thing lenders, want is, a last minute call asking you to, asking for overdraft assistance. Better, it's always better to prepare in advance and see the problems that they're coming down the track. And I mentioned invoice finance earlier. It's a great product that can help you if you do sell to other businesses, and can at least ensure you get that cash into your bank account more quickly.
Darren, I mentioned earlier, it's not just about finance flowing through your business. Sometimes people don't pay you at all, which is a bigger worry for work that you've already done, and terrible stress and annoyance, and you've got to chase and sometimes take action. And some people are very slow, very late, communication breaks down. These are all issues that I know FSB gets probably daily. What can people do?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because I think a lot of businesses can have that question themselves. What is the available routes for them aside from kind of chasing? I think it's worth noting just off the bat that late payments itself tend to get worse during economic downturns. I mean, we're seeing this ourselves in our late payment tracker. It's now over 1 in 2 businesses in Q3 had some form of late payment, with a quarter saying that late payments were getting worse. I guess this goes back to what we're trying to do as well at FSB. So we're trying to place pressure on government to create a better payment charter in legislation. So the idea of kind of having that 30-day prompt payment code, make that a kind of industry standard across all businesses in the UK. But for an individual business, it's very difficult, because if you start chasing in such a way that potentially puts your business relation on the line, you may lose a potential buyer. And this is the kind of nuance that a lot of businesses struggle with, that they need the money, obviously, but they also need the business. They're stuck in a really difficult situation, and I think it's largely to do with the lack of bargaining power being kind of largely on the small business side. So a lot of these businesses are really kind of left out in the dark without any legislation or government action in place.
Do you think it's a question of tactics? Because I've tried in the past being the nice guy. Oh, I understand, we're all going through it, but if you could just keep the lines of communication, yeah, we'll pay you, Dave, don't worry. And you hope, don't you? You sort of think, oh, well, I'm being nice. If they've got a long list of people that are in the queue, I'll go to the top because I'm being the nicest to them, and I'm not sending them the sort of letters and that sort of thing. On the other hand, sometimes a letter, and there is a process, isn't there? You send this letter first, then this letter, and I know because I've looked on the FSB portal that do this first. Don't go heavy, don't go straight in with a court order. What's the best approach?
I think that's very much kind of business dependent, and I think it's like you said, it depends what you've tried and what your previous relation is. If it's a long-standing relationship, you probably can do the kind of slightly more friendly approach. There might be a genuine reason why there've been late payments this time as opposed to others. But I think it's difficult to kind of give a one answer fits all on this. I think it's the court order. No one wants to go down the court order approach just because of the extra time and resources that puts on a business. But I suppose that is the end situation if nothing else resolves itself.
Yeah, and I mean, I have some self-experience of this. Is this idea that nobody's there, nobody cares but you, because it's the money that you're chasing. And I know I'm bigging up FSB, and quite rightly so, because we're all looking for support, but there are people on the end of a phone there, aren't they, that can help. And I've mentioned the website as well, because sometimes people just want to talk to someone and say, what do I do? FSB will allow you to do that. You can chat, can't you? And it might be that they give you bad news saying, did you have a contract? No. Well, actually, without a contract, it really, you've got no chance or whatever.
No, I think you're completely right. The FSB business help services are one of the main parts of our organisation. And if you're a member of FSB, or if you're not, sign up. But I would implore you to use it. And I think you're right. Having things in writing is the first step to try and rectify the late payment situations.
Let's bring Sir Martin. You know, with Amazon, it's a worldwide brand, and do late payments and chasing money, does that happen, or is that all protected within the Amazon system?
So you mean we paying our suppliers? Is that the
Yeah, a little bit of both, you know, because sometimes there's a little bit of mistrust, you know, with some of the bigger companies, you know, some of their terms are 90 days, and you know, the smaller companies like us think, oh, well, we have to obey them because they're the big guns, as it were. But equally, there are people on your platform, you know, trading with each other, aren't they? So cash is flowing all over the place. Invoices are going all over the place. Money is being exchanged.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about like we offering, you know, payment terms to smaller businesses, as I said, like we do offer that to our pay by invoice program through like a line of credit. Yes, we do see late payments, but I think as typical Amazon, you know, we try to balance and be kind of customer obsessed also in our, you know, collection practices, also trying to talk to small businesses on a case-to-case basis. On the, you know, supplier side, again, Amazon, we tend to, you know, stick to, you know, the standard industry norms, and we have high bar on like making sure we are making our payments on time.
Customer obsessed. What a lovely phrase. Good to hear that one. Mike, let's continue this. I mean, if I've got this person owing me money, the bank is knocking on the door saying we want our money. I'm saying I'm waiting for this person to pay me. Are they understanding? Or they go, don't care, you know, give us our money? Can you prove it to the bank? Could you say, look, this money's there, just can't get it yet? Or are they going to go, no, not interested, sell your house?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because you know, in the end, you know, it's not cash until you sort of got it paid, you know. So I think, you know, but more generally to the point I was making earlier, you know, people understand that people, you know, do have cash flow difficulties, and you know, late payment we've heard a lot about, and with the best will in the world, it's not always your fault that you know, you can't get the money in the door. So, but again, you know, the bank won't know about it unless you have the conversation. So all it'll see is you know, an overdraft rising, or going over limits and things like that. So, you know, if you do have a, you know, a problem with late payment, then you know, it's best to have the conversation, and make sure that you know, you don't upset your lender as well as anyone else, you know. But I think it also emphasizes the, you know, the importance of what we're saying before about you know, about credit control and being careful about, you know, who you provide credit to, because it's very easy to get excited about the new sale, but of course it doesn't really help if that person who you've sold the goods to doesn't pay you. So you know, I'm sure it's, you know, FSB and others will give very good advice on that, but it's you know, always be you know, mindful that as I say, it's, you know, it's your money at the end of the day, and then be you know, do a bit of due diligence with who you provide credit to.
Good lesson. I wished I'd heard that when I set up my publishing company 15 years ago. The first advert I sold on the front cover, I was so happy, came home, punch in the air, sold a big advertising package, never got paid. Yeah. But the guy got his advert on the front page and then disappeared. Heartbreaking. Didn't like that at all. But yeah, better to be better prepared for sure. Now, another question. This one's about personal liability. Let me come to you, Sophie. You know, if I'd have gone to my mum and dad and said, I'm setting up a business, you know, but I'm going to remortgage my house, or I'm going to sell the car, both of them would have gone, don't do that. You know, don't take the personal risk, but people do. Can it come back and bite you? What do people do about that personal liability?
Yeah, a number of products have personal liabilities within personal guarantees, if you like, within them. Many businesses actually take what we call friends and family money first. So they often do get given money by friends who wish to invest in the business, or family who wish to give them a loan, that kind of thing. Obviously, that has its own challenges if you get on with your friends and family, depends. But yes, the personal guarantee side of things, it's definitely a serious consideration for businesses to think about, but it can, taking that product out, that loan out, can help a business to get moving. And if you've got a great business plan, a great business idea, then it's about taking that calculated risk personally to move forward in that way.
And I guess, as Darren already mentioned, getting everything in writing, getting it all agreed, even with your friends and family, isn't it? Because quite often they'll say, well, we want that money back now because we'd like to go on holiday. And can't do that. I've spent it. So you definitely need to think about the terms, even with close friends. Let's take another look in the Q&A. Somebody's launching a business. Let's have a look. I've tried for 7 years for grants. I have an IP granted in the USA and Europe. What do I do? People are struggling, and they're probably frustrated, aren't they, Mike? That they've got this great business idea, that they've got, IP registered, they're good to go, can't get the money. Why?
I think one of the challenges is there's there can be quite a number of people with great ideas and IP registered, but of course your challenge is you've got to present that to investors and convince them that when they've got a lot of choice and who with different ideas from different different businesses, it's a bit like Dragon's Den a bit. The dragons will decide which one of the ideas that they like the most. So it can be challenging, and they only back a relatively small number of the ones that come towards them. But that's also because there's only a relatively small number that go on to give them the sort of investment returns that they're looking for. So the only thing you can really do is continue to take advice, but also try and refine that business plan and put yourself in the shoes of someone who was going to provide the money. So just because you've got you've got something which is unique, doesn't mean to say it's there's a market out there for it, and it's and you can sort of manufacture and make it successfully. So it's really a question of sort of really refining and honing that business plan and proposal to start to make it sufficiently attractive to investors.
Sophie, regional money, that's something that perhaps people overlook, and at quite a micro level. If you're in a regeneration area, or if you're in an area of where the social economics are that it needs that kind of support, that there could well be grants and funding available right down at local level.
Yeah, definitely. Talking to growth hubs about grant options at local level is really important. I thought I'd just mention about the different regional options that the British Business Bank has in place now, but also for the future as well. And we obviously record our numbers on a yearly basis, and we've just released them actually. And 83,000 businesses have been supported by the British Business Bank last financial year outside of London. So I really just want to reiterate that there is money outside of London and the South East. There is money in the regions and the other regions and nations. 540 million. This is combined kind of small debt, small loans, larger loans, but also equity. 540 million has been spent out in the Midlands, the north of England, and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly under the current structure of our regions and nations funds. But the UK government committed £1.6 billion in the last spending review last year. We're in the process of putting those funds in place at the moment. The Southwest of England, we've just launched the process to get the fund managers together, and we will see new funds in place, kind of expanding on the existing Midlands and the north of England, expanding on Cornwall and Isles of Scilly to take the whole of southwest of England, but also Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. There'll be new funds there ready for businesses to apply to, and these typically, what we'll wait and see for the final details, but typically have everything from smaller loans through to multiple £100,000 loans, and equity right up to multiple million equity deals as well. So really exciting for regional businesses.
Cool. We're slowly heading towards the end of this webinar, but I've got a couple of quick questions that I've picked up in the chat. I'll come to you first, Darren. Are you aware some people will look at we perhaps nearly all had to do this during the pandemic, look at a grant application form and think, oh my word, where do I start? I'm a craftsperson. I produced products in wood. I was never good at this stuff at school. Is the support available for bid writing, grant writing? You know, I know some people do it professionally and they'll charge you for that, and you might think, well, that's another cost.
Yeah, so it's actually one of the things we hear most often, that the application process is one of the biggest factors of why people get put off applying for finance. It often kind of asks for details they don't have to hand, the applications are too long, and even in some cases asking for details they just don't want to disclose. Feel like they shouldn't have to disclose necessarily for a piece of finance. So no, you're right. I think the average business is not someone who's a finance expertise, has finance expertise. It is someone who's got a good idea and is having a punt at it, and basically trying to figure everything else out along the journey. One of the things we've heard through talking to small businesses is that if you know another small business or a friend, family, or someone who's gone through the process themselves, that is invaluable. Ask for their advice. They seem more often not willing to help. Otherwise, I think, like you said, you can go to professional writers, but you will pay a fee. I think FSB's business services may be able to help along those lines as well. But I think I also get the impression as well that once you've done one, it becomes much easier. So it's just crossing that threshold of doing the first one, and hopefully it should be much easier going forward.
Cool. I know that I asked for support from FSB when I was filling in grants because I had no evidence. You know, I'd know my first year accounts hadn't been put in because you don't do them for the first 18 months. I was trading, everything was fluid, but I couldn't prove it. But a conversation via FSB and the grant body said, well, look, just send us your bank statements. If you've not had your first year accounts done yet, let's take a look at your bank statements and 1 or 2 invoices and that sort of stuff. And that cleared it. So again, I'd been panicking, but there was help available. I'm going to whip round the 4 of you now for your final top tip. But if one or all of you can give a nod to crowdfunding within your tip, because that's the question that's been asked as well, that would be great. Samarth, what's your top tip for finance and funding as we come to a close?
Yeah, I think from my side, you know, oftentimes when we talk about financing for small businesses, you know, a lot of reaction is it's complicated, it's daunting, you know, but as we learned today, there are more financing options available, such as the one we talked about, Amazon lending, which tends to make financing simpler. So as a small business owner, look out for, you know, more options that are out there, and see what works best for you.
Brilliant. And Darren, top tip?
I'm going to go for a plug of FSB. I think everyone should join. And if you do join, we've got a big voice part of FSB, which is where we reach out for you for the surveys and case studies, which again, like I said, informs everything we do.
Yeah. Well, I'd second that. It's low cost, fsb.org.uk /membership. I would imagine that just go on their website and have a look, and you'll be able to go there as well to watch this video on catch up for any points you might have missed. Sophie, final tip from you as we come to a close.
I would say keep going, absorb the declines, learn from the feedback, and make your next application or pitch to investors even more successful.
Brilliant. Keep going. That's great, isn't it? Mike, you've got a tip.
I do indeed, and really it says just don't be afraid to seek advice and support. You know, you've heard a lot about it on the call today. That's, you know, been fantastic session with you know, all the panelists, and you're going to hear and receive, I hope, you know, lots of links, you know, as you go forward. So it can be very lonely running your own business, and so I just remember there's, you know, there are lots of people out there willing to you know, give you some tips and point you in the right direction. You know, some of it you'll want to take and some of it you won't, but you know, but do take advantage of it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Listen, one of the best things about hosting these as a professional MC is the amount of stuff I learned. So over the last 3 webinars, including this one, we've looked at cybercrime and fraud. We've looked at protecting your products and your brand. And today we've looked at finance and funding. I just want to thank all of you. Thanks to Samarth, Darren, Sophie, and Mike, to FSB, Federation of Small Business, and Amazon, of course, and their Small Business Accelerator. For those of you that don't know about Amazon Small Business Accelerator, do take a look. They've supported over 600,000 small businesses since 2020. There's a brilliant hub there where you can get free resources. Who knew? Well, you know now. So take a look at that. You will get this email. It'll be a link so that you can watch this again. There'll be all of those links that have been mentioned to access finance, funding, support. Any questions we haven't answered, we'll probably answer in there as well. Certainly the crowdfunding one, we didn't really get a chance to dwell on, but we will send details of FSB as well and how you can join if you want to join, of course, but there are free resources there for those that don't join either. You know, we are inclusive across the board. So there we are. We've had a brilliant hour of top tips to hopefully get us through this. We won't call it a crisis, we'll call it a challenge. That's what small businesses do well. We meet the challenges. That's why we set up in the first place, and we'll get there in the end. So thanks to all of you. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for that email, and we'll see you on the next webinar.